every day be another wonderful secret. I'm Michael Smerconish. Today in New York City, as you already know, Thursday night, the Wall Street Journal dropped that bombshell story about the relationship between President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein that, for me, raises as many questions as it answered. The story said that 22 years ago, Trump was among the friends of Epstein, whose letters comprised a bawdy 50th birthday greeting to the now deceased pedophile. But curiously, the Journal did not print the letter. Let's think about that. The Journal said that it had reviewed unspecified documents and had relied on people who had reviewed the pages. The Journal also reported reviewing a letter bearing Trump's name, which was hand-drawn with a heavy marker and depicted a naked woman, including a, quote, Donald signature meant to look like pubic hair. The president denied that this was his work. He said that it was fake, that he never wrote a picture in his life, that he doesn't draw pictures of women. He also added that he would sue the Wall Street Journal if they published the story, and he has since made good on that threat, filing a libel case yesterday which seeks at least $20 billion against the Journal and the reporters involved. Overall, classic Trump. Deny, 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 always be on the attack, as Roy Cohn counseled him years ago. Only in this case, we're talking about something that either exists or it doesn't. Unlike other Trump controversies that have pitted his word against an accuser or his word against an allegation, common sense to me suggests that a birthday book exists. There's just too much detail in the story to think otherwise. We're told that it's leather bound, that it was put together by a bookbinder who's identified, Herbert Weitz, and that Weitz once listed Jeffrey Epstein as a client, that it contains poems and photos and greetings from business people and academics. Then there's this very specific detail about Alan Dershowitz's letter being a mock-up of a Vanity Fair cover, complete with a headline asking whether Jeffrey Epstein was Jack the Ripper. There's even, supposedly, an Epstein report card from the Mark Twain Junior High School in Brooklyn. It's hard to fathom that a two-person byline story in a newspaper owned by Rupert Murdoch, which was sure to infuriate the president, would all be made up out of whole cloth, or that it would have made it to press without a very thorough legal scrubbing. And yet, here we are, with the president in a lawsuit saying this is fake news. So what does he know? Let's game it out. I see two scenarios. Either that even if a book exists, whatever purports to be from him isn't. That perhaps someone else wrote the submission on his behalf, with or without his knowledge. Although with regard to his denial about not drawing pictures, there's already plenty of evidence that he has. But for all that, it's hard to believe that the president would have written the imaginary conversation between himself and Epstein 22 years ago. Into some of the back and forth. Jeffrey, yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me last time I saw you. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret. That doesn't sound like something Donald Trump would write. A second possibility, Trump knows that if the Wall Street Journal could have produced it, they would have done so when they published the story, and that such a letter, real or fabricated, will never see the light of day. Of course, now he's filed this lawsuit, which will presumably lead to a discovery process where his lawyers get access to the Journal's information, but Trump himself could likely sit for a sworn deposition. Let's assume there is a bawdy note from Trump to Epstein. He survived worse. There's no allegation of criminal conduct here, only potential bad taste. This really does amount to locker room talk. So why would this be something he would so vehemently deny if it exists? Maybe because, unlike prior Trump controversies, this one has done something none of the others were able to do. It has jarred the base, which might help explain why yesterday Trump had the Department of Justice move to release pertinent grand jury testimony in the Epstein case. The story has not only shaken his base, it's also shaken his support among Republicans in Congress. Writing in the Washington Post, Philip Bump offered as good an explanation as any that I have seen. He said, quote, probably for the first time since he announced his candidacy in 2015, Trump has found himself on the elite's side of the divide against the people. Instead of leveraging the power of conspiratorial thinking, for at least a moment, he is seen as being used against him. Think about it. The Republicans in the House were unwilling to push back against Trump when he proposed cuts to Medicaid that could threaten rural hospitals, things that could have real impact on their constituents. But when a story about files of a deceased sex offender now arise, suddenly they're willing to defy the president in a way they would not previously, including House Speaker Mike Johnson. But Trump's litigious move seems to have turned that tide. The Wall Street Journal story and the president's response in the short term might have done for Trump what he's been struggling to do in recent days, and that is to get MAGA back on the same page, in this case, uniting against their old foe, the media. How long that remains the case will depend on the next birthday book revelation from the Wall Street Journal or some other media outlet. Joining now is CNN senior legal analyst and former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, Elie Honig. Elie, my first thought when I heard that he'd actually filed the lawsuit is, well, he just signed up to be deposed on the most personal aspects of his relationship with Epstein.
Yeah, 100%, Michael. That will happen. I know Donald Trump has a long history of getting involved in civil suits and even criminal cases and saying he's going to testify, but then avoiding testifying or refusing to testify. There is no escaping the fact that Donald Trump, the plaintiff, the person who brought this case, will be deposed by the lawyers for Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch under oath in this case. There's no executive privilege. And if you want to look back at history, it's the Paula Jones case involving Bill Clinton, where the Supreme Court unanimously said it doesn't matter that you're the president, you still can be deposed in a civil case. If anything, the rationale's even stronger here because Donald Trump is the plaintiff. And the subject matter, Michael, of that deposition will be entirely about the nature, extent, and details of Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It boggles my mind that Donald Trump and his legal team are walking him right into this scenario.
Well, and similarly, couldn't the Wall Street Journal now subpoena the DOJ file on Epstein?
Well, that's interesting. It does happen sometimes that civil litigants, people who've been sued, will try to get their hands on DOJ materials. And actually, if you look at the rule that covers grand jury secrecy over on the criminal side, it actually says one of the exceptions, one of the reasons that documents can be made public or turned over to somebody is if they're necessary in a separate, ongoing legal matter. So there could be a way that that the lawyers for Wall Street Journal do manage to tap into and access some of those DOJ documents.
Elie, I have read this Journal story probably 10 times, line by line by line. And the wording of it is so curious to me and so obviously lawyered. But let me just read a few things aloud. Just documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Pages, according to people who've reviewed the pages. The letter bearing Trump's name, which was reviewed by the Journal. Like, they're very careful as to exactly how they phrase it. But in the end, they don't publish the letter. What do you make of it?
So my lawyer radar was, I think, going off the same as yours. As I read that article, I kept thinking, this is the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch saying, bring it on. We're ready. I don't think it takes a crystal ball reader to predict that Donald Trump was going to sue, which he did very quickly. Now that that has happened, what Donald Trump has to prove in order to win on his defamation case is, first of all, that the reporting is false, and second of all, that the Wall Street Journal knew it was false or acted recklessly. And so what the Wall Street Journal is communicating with the language you just read is we've done our diligence. Now, whether they have the letter or not, I don't know. It does happen sometimes journalistically that an outlet will report on some document first, wait and see what the blowback is, and sometimes they have it, and then they later on release it. You've seen scenarios like that. So I don't know whether they have it, but what they're signaling there is, go ahead and bring this lawsuit. We are ready. We have our defense ready. We're buttoned up.
Okay, final thought. One thing I think I do know is that the album that we're discussing will not be contained in, quote, pertinent grand jury information, testimony.
That is 100% accurate. And I want to make this point. I think it's really important. If we look at the request that DOJ made late yesterday, the request that Donald Trump had ordered them to make for pertinent grand jury testimony, you could not possibly engineer a request to more look like you're asking for a lot,
right,
but actually be asking for a very, very little, right? Let's just put that aside. I mean, pertinent is completely subjective, but grand jury testimony is such a narrow slice of any complete criminal investigative file. It would not include bank records, phone records, flight records, if there is such a book and letter, things you seize during a search warrant, wiretaps, videotapes, I can go on and on. It would not even, Michael, include all witness testimony. It is far more common for a witness to give testimony to prosecutors outside of the realm of the grand jury. So even that would not be included.
Okay, I'm going to cut you a pass. You don't have to answer specifically today's poll question. I'll just ask it generally. Are we going to see, we the public, going to see whatever it is the Journal was talking about?
So I'm going to craft my own little mini exception to your poll question, Michael, which is only if the Wall Street Journal actually has it and is holding it back and is planning to put it out as part of some second wave. But short of that scenario, put me down for never.
Wow. Okay. Elie, thank you as always.